crafty friends. I'm going to be making 20 cards today using the Paper Rose Studio Bees and Butterflies collection. I'll be using the 6x6 size paper pads. The collection does come with 12x12. Each paper pad is double-sided and you get 3 of each design. This first pad features mostly butterflies and flowers, while the basics pad focuses more on bees. I love bees a lot, so I knew this was a collection I wanted to craft with. I will also be using the embossed die cut sheets. I always love the texture and shine they have. I'm going to be using the quick card die cuts as well, which are also embossed. These sheets feature so many sentiments to use, and I'm going to be using 7 different card sketches today, which can be found on my coordinating blog post found in the description box below. For sketch number 1, I'm using Mojo Monday number 543, and I start with using some polka dot paper, and the 1-inch strip is bumblebees. I layered the pattern paper onto some black cardstock, which is 1/8 of an inch larger than the pattern paper. To line everything up easier, I have taped both sides together before placing my double-sided tape. I'm using some honey jar paper for the smaller rectangle, and I have matted it as well using black cardstock, also 1/8 of an inch larger. I take my small strip of wood patterned paper and place it about 3/4 of an inch from the bottom. Next, I take my honey jar paper and line it up with the strip I just placed. I am slightly off center, about 3/4 of an inch from the right side. For some separation, and to make the wood paper pop, I'm using some black peel-offs from Love from Lizzie. Today I'll be using the wavy ones for some extra fun. I am only placing the peel-offs on the sides of the square, since I will be covering it with my circle. I trimmed off the ends, and I also stuck a strip all the way along the bottom. Smaller sections are great for using leftovers from previous projects. Next, I'm taking this Circle B embossed die cut. I've trimmed the circle smaller than it was originally. I use my glue on the bottom and place the circle center to my square. For this sentiment, I'm using another embossed die cut. This time I have foam squares on the back for dimension. I place it on the left side of the circle. I take my tape on the back of the card mat and place it on top of a white A2 card. The mat is smaller than the card and leaves a nice white border along the edge. I made 2 cards using this sketch. For card sketch number 2, I'm using Operation Write Home number 146. I will start with this lovely flower pattern paper cut to 4 inches by 5¼ inches, and some more of the polka dot paper from the last sketch. I want to make sure I use as much of the papers as I can. I tape the dotted paper 1/2 inch from the bottom of my flower paper. And I have a 1-inch strip of the wood paper, again using scraps from the first cards. I wanted to make this strip into a flag, so I'm using my handy flag punch, but you can easily do this by hand with scissors. I take my glue and place the flag in the center of the dot paper. I add some more of the wavy strips to the top and bottom of the dot paper. I fold the ends over the back. The white rectangle is embossed using a folder from Spellbinders. I take my tape and place the white onto the card mat. For this one, I'm placing the box closer to the bottom than what is depicted on the sketch. I wanted the flower paper to be shown as much as possible since it is such beautiful paper. I have this lovely embossed die cut with a bee on a flower, and so I add glue on the back and place it in the middle of the white box. I finished off the card with an embossed sentiment that I glue to the top right hand corner. I add this to a black card mat with an 1/8 of an inch border, and the whole mat is attached to my white card base. I made 3 cards using this sketch. Card sketch number 3 is Freshly Made Sketches number 628. I have chosen this yellow flower paper, and I start with attaching it to black cardstock. I also add a black mat to my smaller square paper. Using my tape, I stick the square top center. I want to leave as much of the flowers exposed. The box can be rotated to change the look of the sketch. I glue a bee embossed die cut in the bottom left corner, followed by gluing an embossed die cut sentiment to the top right corner. I take the completed card mat and attach it to my card base. I made 2 cards using this sketch. Card sketch number 4 is from Cards TV number 59. I'm going to make this sketch 2 ways. The first way is by cutting the card mat out of a single piece of paper. In this case, I'm choosing the bee pattern. The center strip piece is cut using paper from My Paper Insider box number 10. I had some leftovers of this paper, and it works great with the bees. I place it in the center of my card mat. And then I grabbed some silver peel-offs from Love from Lizzie that I'm going to use to separate the green. I'm using the medium width for this. I trim the edges and fold the excess over the back. I take my tape and add this to a black mat, again an 1/8 inch larger than the pattern paper. I glue the embossed die cuts to the green strip. I started with the bottom bee before adding the topmost bee with the embossed sentiment in the middle. I attached the finished mat to my white card base. I managed to have scraps of the green paper to make 2 cards. For the second method of doing this card sketch, I'm using leftover scraps from previous cards. All 3 strips are 1.5 inches wide. I start with the honey jar strips, and using my tape, I place each on the outer edges of the mat. To line up the 2 outer strips, I grab my ruler to help me. The bee strip is next. Again, using my tape, I attach the bee paper to the center of the mat, and I make sure the edges line up. To create separation from the center, I'm returning to my black wavy peel-offs. I'll be using the medium width this time. I line up the edges and trim the excess. I grab these smaller bead die cuts and another embossed sentiment. I add some foam tape to the back of them all, and I am changing up the layout at this point. I place the first bee in the bottom left corner with the sentiment above to the right, followed by alternating the remaining 2 bees. Finishing off the card with a white card base, I was able to make 2 cards using this sketch, and it used up a bunch of leftovers. Card sketch number 5 is inspired by this card sketch from Jess Crafts. I have changed this sketch a bit to make this card. The flower paper is cut into 3 strips, sized 1 inch wide by 4 inches long. This paper is directional, so I made sure that I have it in the correct orientation. I mat these strips to black cardstock. It's 1/8 of an inch larger than my pattern paper. The background paper for my strips is this texture paper from Your Paper Insider box number 10. And it is sized 4 inches by 5.25 inches. Laying out the strips onto the mat, I decided to stagger them instead of keeping them all center. Taking my tape, I start with the left strip, and the texture of the paper works well for guidelines. I'm leaving 1/4 of an inch from the top and the side. I repeat the same thing with the rightmost strip and line it up 1/4 of an inch from the bottom and the side. The center is last, and I line it up center to the mat, leaving equal room between the side strips. This sentiment is a cut apart found within the paper pads, and it is roughly 1/4 inch wide. And the mat is roughly 1/2 inch. Placing it closer to the bottom of the middle strip, I grabbed another embossed bead die cut with foam squares on the back for dimension. I placed it to the left of the sentiment, and then I placed everything on my card base. I made 2 cards using this sketch. Card sketch number 6 is Cards TV number 34. The card mat starts with this light butterfly pattern paper and a 1/2 inch strip of wood grain paper. I put glue on the back and placed the strip in the center of the butterfly paper. I want the wood grain to stand out, so I'm returning to my silver Love from Lizzie peel-offs. I am using the smallest width this time, and I run the peel-off along the top and bottom of the pattern paper. I trim off the excess and fold the edges over the back. With tape on the back, I place it on top of black cardstock. Next, I work on attaching my smaller box to a black mat using tape. And this paper is a very detailed flower pattern that will stand out against the lighter paper behind it. I taped this box to the center of my card mat. I started with an embossed circle embellishment, but switched to this large embossed butterfly that I felt fit better on the mat. I attached it with my glue to the bottom right corner, which allowed me to adjust it to get the placement that I wanted. I also glued the embossed sentiment to the bottom left corner before attaching to my white card base. I made 2 cards for the sketch. Card sketch number 7 features My Favorite Things sketch number 686. This sketch involves cutting paper at an angle. I took 2 different sheets of patterned paper to create the 2 halves. The pattern paper is 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. To help me cut these, I flipped them over and used a ruler before cutting. The bottom piece starts 1.5 inches from the bottom or 1 inch from the top. Due to me flipping it over, my cards are mirrored from the sketch. I applied tape to the back of the 2 pieces to allow for easier placement on the black mat. To hide the cut line, I'm using the largest size of wavy peel-offs. I run it the length of the card line and trim the edge and fold them over the back. I tape the back and add it to my black card mat that's 1/8 of an inch larger than the pattern paper. For the sentiment, I have this embossed die cut that says, "Be kind." I also grabbed this honey dipper die cut and 2 small bees. I took a minute to decide on the layout, but eventually added glue to the back of the sentiment and stuck it in the bottom right corner. I glued 1 bee at an angle on the right side on top of my peel-off border. The honey dipper on the left side is at an angle, hanging just slightly over the honey jar paper. I glued the second bee onto the top of the handle of the honey dipper. I used my tape to stick the finished card mat onto my white card base. I made a second card using the other halves of the paper to not waste any. This final card is not based on any specific sketch. I wanted to showcase the beauty of the pattern paper from this collection. I chose this bee on a flower paper. I love that the pattern is on the left side, which allows me to showcase the paper and add a sentiment without covering the beauty. This paper is 4 inches by 5 1/4, and I added tape to the back before adding it to my black card mat, once again 1/8 of an inch larger. I attached the finish mat to my white card base using my double-sided tape. I added glue to the back of the sentiment and added it to the top right corner. I actually made 3 cards. This second card, I added 3 small embossed bee die cuts, and the third I added a butterfly to complement the flower paper. In total, I made 20 cards. I used lots of the paper from the 2 pads, but I have plenty to make even more. If you want to craft with this collection, I do have links in the description box below, along with my coordinating blog post for the sketches. Please click the like button and don't forget to subscribe to see more videos. Have a lovely crafty day. Bye!